Hi, I'm Benton Stokes.
And I'm Elane O'Rourke.
And this is Cocktail Theology. Welcome to summer!
Yay, summer!
Yay, summer!
I always forget that it's summer because even though my child is on the 9-month or whatever it is school year, work just keeps going.
It's true.
But you love summer.
I do love summer. A lot of my favorite things happen in summer.
Like what?
Riding roller coasters.
Yes.
Drum corps.
Oh.
My birthday is pre-summer. It's in June, which I consider June to be part of summer.
It's kind of an advent to summer.
It is. It is advent to summer. Other little celebrations like Father's Day. Mm-hmm. I love just everything about summer.
Okay, then.
I'm very nostalgic about summer. Riding my bicycle and buying comic books and... going to the park and all the things that kids do in summer. I still love all that stuff.
Which is awesome. You tell a wonderful story about that, but that's fine. So what I hear is that you value summer.
I do value summer.
That's cool. So I'm going to tell you what we're drinking today, but I'm going to tell you something else first.
Okay.
So there is a tradition in Greece, particularly in the Greek Orthodox Church, but in Greece in general, and they may not do this anymore. They've come into the modern years. However, the tradition was that when a baby's born, you don't name it for 8 or 10 days. I've forgotten exactly what. Because way back in the dim, distant past, babies died. Mm-hmm. Very soon, all too often. And it still unfortunately happens in communities of color here. Mm-hmm. In any case. So you don't name it, you just call it baby. Mm. So this cocktail is a Greek baby.
Okay.
We're not naming it because I'm not convinced it's going to survive today.
We're not sure it's going to live past today.
No. So it's Rangpur gin, which we love, but it's light and kind of limey. It's got Torani rose syrup, and I think that's the problem.
Okay. It's
got Vicenzi Amaro, which is kind of like Aperol-ish.
It is.
But it's pretty light. It has a couple of drops of lime juice and a good solid shake of grapefruit bitters. Okay. But it's not quite right. And I think the problem is that the rose syrup is just a little too sweet and not enough rose. So I think that maybe if I made the rose syrup and made it more rosy, it would work better. But try it and see what you think.
Okay.
It's a pretty color.
It's a beautiful color. Oh, that's tasty, but I see what you mean.
Yeah.
The rose isn't cutting through, and what we're getting more is just sweet than rose.
Yeah.
Because it is a Torani syrup, so it's going to be certainly.
Yeah, it's way sweet. Anyway, so I'm thinking that I'll try and make a rose syrup that isn't quite so syrupy later. But in the meantime, it has no name because it may die in 10 days.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I'm going to take this opportunity, listeners. If you have ideas for cocktails, we would love to know what they are.
Please.
If you have a favorite cocktail that you have tried out on your friends at parties and you think we would love it, send us the recipe. We are at cocktailtheology.com. We are willing to try any cocktail probably once.
Pretty much, unless it has stuff in it that we simply can't get. Like, I am not spending our rent on whatever weird syrup our friends come up with. I'm sorry, we're not doing that. But yeah.
Right. And we will give you a shout out if we try it
we will.
on an episode.
Yes,
even if we don't like it, we'll still give you a shout out.
Well, and we'll give you a shout out if you give us an idea about what to talk about. Because we talk all the time. But we don't know what you want us to talk about unless you tell us.
It's true.
So,
definitely true.
Cocktailtheology.com.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, I hinted at it a little while ago.
You did.
But we're talking about values. Mm-hmm. The reason I want to talk about values is I was in a discussion today about what we value as human beings. Like, in terms of what are our values, which is different than what we value, sort of.
Okay.
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
What occurred to me as I was talking with people about this is a lot of people say they value XYZ because XYZ are all wonderful things that we're supposed to value.
Yeah.
But if you watch them, it doesn't seem like they value those things.
Yeah.
A long time ago now, I was watching Dr. Phil. This tells you how long ago. So for those of you who don't know who Dr. Phil is, Dr. Phil was an advice person vaguely steeped in psychology.
Vaguely. Yeah.
Anyway, I was watching one time, and there was an addict on the show. And she was talking about how, at this point, having children, what she would do was when she needed to shoot up, or when she, and I'm going to say need because it's addiction. When she needed to shoot up, she would put her youngest child very safely in his high chair. So he was safe, and he was young enough that high chair would be fine. And she'd shoot up and then come back to him in like 10 minutes. I mean, really short period of time, the kind of time you'd normally go and do other things and leave your child safely.
Okay.
And she was like, my children are the most important thing to me. I value my children. My values are my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dr. Phil pointed out to her that no, she valued being high. He wasn't critiquing her. He was saying, let's get real about what you actually value. Well, I think that what we value and our values are connected somehow, but I'm not sure how. So I kind of wanted to throw that out and kind of work through that with you.
Okay.
So my values in this exercise I was doing today were integrity and joy and spirituality.
Okay.
And I realized that integrity and spirituality I probably all of them I define differently than other people just because I'm so picky about words.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But I was thinking, okay, so do I behave as if integrity, joy, and spirituality are my values? Which then led me to, well, what do I value? What does that mean? That's where we are.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty wide open thing to talk about. I don't remember when the buzz phrase family values became a thing.
I do, but go ahead.
Okay. I know that there was a season of my life when I would listen to some right-wing radio.
Sure.
And there are reasons for that we can get into on another episode. But one of the things that I would listen to occasionally was Focus on the Family.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember hearing the phrase family values a lot. In fact, they created some kind of family values coalition. I forget what it was called. But I remember family values being a big buzz phrase.
Yes.
And like, if you were a part of that world, and I would say that world is both conservative politically, but also like evangelicals, people that consider themselves conservative Christians.
Okay.
Man, that these days that definition has sort of morphed a little bit from them.
So these would be also people who are cisgender, identify as heterosexual.
Yes.
And they're at least they're heteronormative.
Right.
Right. And for those of you who don't know those words, all I'm saying is that they fit into kind of a stereotypical male, female is normal and also valuable. So.
Right. But it was like the phrase family values, it was like everybody who was listening knew what that was.
Yes.
It was like there was the assumption that family values included these things.
Oh, yeah.
If you had family values, then you were pro-life, meaning anti-abortion.
Okay.
Meaning you were anti-gay marriage because you believe that God...
Well, anti-gay.
Yeah, anti-gay, even though they wouldn't couch it that way, because with family values, everything is pro, right? So we're pro traditional marriage. We're pro
biblical view of life.
Right?
But it's that.
It's that
same kind of oddness. Okay.
It's that. Okay. But there was the assumption that everybody knew what that meant.
Sure.
And I think when you say you have traditional values, well, this is the group of values. But then again, it depends on who you're talking to.
Right.
Because traditional values for you and me are not necessarily the same traditional values that the Southern Baptist pastor down the street holds.
See, I would probably, if I were going to call something traditional values, it would be what the Southern Baptist pastor down the street calls traditional values, but it would have big ironic scare quotes around it.
And eye rolls.
Right? Because I understand exactly what you're saying.
You understand that
it's a phrase.
Right.
It is not meaningful.
Yes, and not meaningful, which is my point. And I think that's sort of what you were getting at was like we have these words that we throw around like integrity.
Yep.
But we don't necessarily standardize what the meaning is. We don't calibrate on, well, what do you think integrity is?
Right.
Well, here's what I think integrity is.
Right.
And saying that you believe in integrity doesn't actually mean that you do.
Well, and that goes back to my Dr. Phil example.
Yeah.
Right? This woman, God love her, and I really did feel for her, thought she valued her family more than anything.
Right.
And then she was confronted with, well, no, for whatever reason, including addiction, you actually value this other thing more.
Yeah.
Now what?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which I think is something that every addict of any stripe eventually has to come to.
Yeah.
Right? Actually, what do I value?
Right.
Really, what do I value? And what am I going to do to live out those values? Right?
Right. And so then when you have that dissonance of, this is what I thought I valued, or this
Yes.
is what I want to value,
Yes.
and yet my behavior clearly shows that this is actually what I value or what I believe,
Yeah.
then you have to deal with that dissonance and figure out, well, what am I going to do about this?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's actually kind of the way we were born. I mean, you and me and what we do was that clash, that, I love the word dissonance, that dissonance between what you thought you believed or felt or whatever and what you are coming to understand you actually whatever.
Right.
I think there's something in integrity where those things come together, where what you think you value and what you say you value and what you live out as values align.
Okay.
There's something about integrity in that. Now, that could mean, I don't think this actually happens, but that could mean that if you say you value mass murder and you do value mass murder and you live out mass murder, that would allow you to say that there was integrity there. That's a tricky one.
That's a tricky one, sure.
Right? But by that definition, the idea that you live out what you believe is important, that's sort of integrity. So there's this other aspect to that, I think, that has to do with goodness, righteousness. I don't know what the word would be. It's not just consistency, because I wouldn't say you had integrity if you were a consistent, awful person.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so just because you're being consistent in a behavior or consistent in a worldview or consistent in a belief system doesn't mean you have integrity.
Right. So let's stay on that for a minute, because I think integrity is a good one, because it's a word we use in multiple ways. Like we talk about structural integrity, right?
Sure.
So if you're talking about the I-beams that make up a bridge, I'm making stuff up, I'm about to run out of knowledge at this point, but the I-beams that make up a bridge, when you're talking about structural integrity, what you mean is that each of those things, plus the bridge structure itself, is not going to fall apart.
Right.
So you've got metal that has a while to go before it starts breaking down. You've got a structure that makes sense and all that. So how can we apply that to integrity? It's just a good example.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like integrity is the thing that holds you together, the way that a beam holds a bridge together.
Okay.
But integrity is interesting because it doesn't hold you together apart from your involvement and participation in it. So it's not like you can fall back onto your integrity.
Right.
I mean, you can fall back onto a reputation of integrity.
Or a habit of integrity.
Or a habit of integrity, right. But you can't really have a lapse in your belief system and expect integrity to hold you up.
Yes. Okay, can we stick on belief for a minute?
Yeah.
I realize we're wandering, but people will come with us because they've got a cocktail in front of them. They're with us.
And they can ask us questions and we can clarify.
And we would love that, yes. Okay, so you use the word belief, which is important. One of the ways that we really clarify what we're talking about is that the word belief for us means that underlying principle or underlying principles that you act on.
Yes.
Okay? So you can say you believe in justice, but if you aren't acting in a just way, you don't believe in justice. You believe in something else. You may want to believe in justice.
Right.
You may think justice is a cool idea.
Right.
But you don't believe.
You don't
Belief
actually
has
believe
to
it.
do with the motivation, the activity. Going back to that, the idea that believing in integrity or believing you have integrity only holds if you actually act in a way with integrity.
With integrity, right.
Okay, good. I like that.
Yeah, so it's not actually something that holds you together, because it does require you to choose, to make choices that have integrity.
Yes.
But to say that something has structural integrity means that it holds together. So if a person has integrity, does that mean they hold together? And I think it could be argued to say that they do. If, again, they're consistently acting in integrity, they're consistently, doing the things they say they are going to do.
I know the problem here.
Okay.
We don't use the word integrity as in structural integrity to apply to things that we don't like.
Oh, okay.
Wow. That lava had structural integrity when it overwhelmed that town. We don't say that. Those aren't words we use.
No.
So there is an inherent, or at least a common sense that the word integrity is a positive, that you want whatever outcome that is.
Yeah.
Which also means that you judge whether somebody has integrity by the outcomes.
By the outcomes, exactly.
Rather than by their consistency or their wholeness or any of those things.
Yeah.
Okay. So can we back up from that?
Yes.
All right. So values. When we say we have particular values, it's partly belief from which we act. It's partly that there is coherence between what we think and what we act on and what we live out in our lives and what we would say is true. There's some kind of coherence in there.
Yeah.
And our values reflect what we value. Because those are different.
They are different.
Right?
Yeah.
If I say one of my values is connection with other people, but I don't make connection with other people or put the effort into connection with other people, then I don't value connection.
Right, you really don't.
So actually then, can I say that connection is one of my values? I would say no.
No.
But I mean, I can change that. That's right. So if I say that integrity is one of my values, then I value right action, good benefits to my action and good beyond me, and coherence between what I think and what I do.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
So what's one of your values or something you value? Because we can go in either direction on this.
Something I value.
Besides roller coasters and actually, roller coasters in summer is not a bad thing. Let's stay with that because it's easy.
Okay, so I value riding roller coasters in summer.
Okay, so what do you do to make that happen? Anything?
Yes. Well, first I have a trip that I take with my family every summer. We converge in Nashville, and then we drive 8 hours to northern Ohio to the Lake Erie coast, and we go to Cedar Point, which is our favorite collection of record-breaking roller coasters in the world. America's
no
roller
plug
coaster.
there.
Right.
Okay, we should call them and just say, hey, by the way.
Yeah, this episode brought to you by Cedar Point. And so we go there every summer and we ride roller coasters. And of course, it's not just about the roller coasters.
Right. So what's it about?
It's about having that time together with my family. Okay. When their mom and I split up, one of the things that I really worked hard to do was create traditions and things that we do together that are kind of our things.
Yes.
And so one of those things became taking this trip.
Yes.
And I kind of introduced my kids to roller coasters and also my sister and nephew. And so it became a trip that we take every year. And now that my kids are, 26, 24, and 20, it's still something that we look forward to every year.
Okay. So you value riding roller coasters in summer, but your description of that included valuing time with your kids, valuing time with your sister and her son. And it seems to me that if one of your kids said, I don't want to ride roller coasters anymore, you would still say, well, then come with us and do other things.
Yeah, for sure.
Or we'll do some things on the roller coasters and we'll do other things, right?
Things too.
So the underlying values you have there really are about connection with your family. Because you could ride roller coasters without them.
And I love that too.
Yes, you do. But this particular case you brought up, was that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would suggest to you that if you were riding roller coasters by yourself, you wouldn't shiv the person in front of you to move faster, right? So your values, in that sense, don't include riding roller coasters.
Yeah.
Right? You value that, but your values describe and predict and promote how you're going to go about doing that.
Yeah. Mic drop.
Mic drop. I value the mic drop. No, but it's starting to become clearer for me about how we use those words and what that means.
I think we misuse the term values all the time because I don't think we understand really, based on just this conversation, it really, for me, I think, comes down to your beliefs.
Mm-hmm. Which are those underlying things you don't necessarily know about that motivate your action.
And values, I think, for me, the way that I view my values is they kind of spring from those beliefs. The beliefs are more core. There are days when I value solitude. Well, it doesn't mean I'll value solitude just as much tomorrow. I might value community more tomorrow.
Okay.
But today I value solitude. But I think that does spring from what are my beliefs? What are the ideas that I act on?
Right.
Am willing to act on.
Okay.
Not just the things that I say, oh, that's really cool, I like that, so I value that, or that's one of my values. Like you mentioned, justice. Justice is one of my values. Well, if I'm not promoting justice, if I'm not being just, then is it?
Right. Yeah, and that's not necessarily bad. I mean, we're using examples of things that are, important and all those blah blah, and like there's music that comes up when you say them.
Right.
But I do think that understanding what you value and what your values actually are, what your beliefs actually are, is really important.
I think it's very important.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's good about our course, the 17 Embraceable Ideas, is you start out by trying to figure out what you actually believe.
What you actually believe.
Not what you think,
right,
but what you believe.
Right. And then you can start to figure out, well, what do I want to do about that?
Right.
Is there something?
Yeah,
I don't want to do about that.
Yeah, so the description you just gave of your family trip to Cedar Point suggests to me that you believe that enjoyable connection with your kids is good.
I do.
That's the belief.
Yes.
And then comes out of that these other things.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense to me. I'm willing to go with that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go with that.
Listeners, what do you guys think? What do you value? What are your values? What are your beliefs? Have you thought about that? We would love to hear from you. Always love to hear from you. Cocktailtheology.com is where you can reach us. And we would love, again, ideas for other episodes, other terms. Last season, we did a lot of sort of debunking language that can be weaponized, and family values is one of those.
Adam's Family Values!
Yeah. Oh, Adam's Family Values.
Let's go watch the movie!
That was a great movie.
Okay.
So anyway, we'd love to hear from you about all of that. Cocktailtheology.com is where you find us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.